Okay, I got a chance to get out here today to test this modified trolling motor out. I put a speed controller in there and it's powering a 55 pound thrust Minn Kota motor, and I'm on the Barge Canal in New York State. I started out at the Frankfurt Marina in Frankfurt, New York, and I went down to the lock in Schuyler, New York. I'm on my way back. It's about 7 miles round trip. On the way down, I kicked this up to 100% and had it on there for about 20 minutes just to check if it was going to overheat, and it stayed really good with that fan I have in here. I could actually feel the warm air coming out of it, but the wires all stayed nice and cool. My connector, I have 10 gauge wire here that Minn Kota sends with their motors. I put an Anderson connector on, and I have 8 gauge, 5 feet of 8 gauge going from here to the batteries. A lot of people I know would recommend 6 gauge, but I've used this for 3 years now, and I haven't had a problem with it. As long as you got all your connections tight, it's fine. So anyway, I have this connected to my remote control steering. That's that. I got it covered up because it's not quite ready for prime time yet. I'll be doing a video on that soon, but this works really good. It's really accurate. And I can also, I use this with a wired button box. Right, left. I can turn the speed up and down on that so I can speed or steer slow. Nice calm current, or if you're going in a fast current, you want to steer a little faster, I could turn the steering speed up. And also I could work this with a wireless remote, which is this. I just flip a switch and this thing's super responsive, really quick. And this wired remote works just as well as the button box. And I also made a foot pedal where I could stick this in. That's this right here. Just stick it in there. And I can steer with my foot while I'm trolling, hands free. So that works out pretty good. And also I put a depth adjustment on here so I could lift the motor up and down with my remote control. I see where a lot of people put linear actuators going from somewhere here up to the shaft of the motor, and they actually pull their motor forward and rock it out of the water for depth adjustment. But to me, that's not as efficient as the way I have it. When you're rocking it up, you're putting all the force downward, so it's not pushing straight. Although your boat is going straight, most of your thrust, or some of your thrust, is being forced downward, and it's not as efficient as going straight. So I can also work this with either my button box or wireless remote. Let me turn this off, and I can lift it. It's a little slow, but does the trick. And even when it's in the air like that, I can still steer it. Flip my switch here. And I can bring that up 11 inches, and all the way up to the top, it'll still steer. So I can steer at any depth. I have a 6-channel receiver I'm going to hook up and get rid of all the switching back and forth with the toggle switches to go between functions. I'll be able just to do it from one remote without having to hit anything, but I'll lower this back down. And unlike the store-bought remote control trolling motors like Minkata or Motor Guide make, they're a lot fancier for sure. They got the GPS and the spot lock and all this other stuff. But if that remote ever goes out on you, you can't control it manually. It's only meant to be operated remote controlly. Whereas if something happened with my remote control, I just pull the bracket and I could steer this by hand. And then when I want to use the remote control, I just snap the bracket on and it's good to go. So that's my remote control. I'll show you how this speed controller works though. Snap that bracket back up in there. Okay, so taking off. This has a soft start to it too. I guess that's a good added safety feature, so it doesn't give a jolt all at once when you take off. Anyway, here we are at 100%. Going along pretty good. I'm cruising. I can get this baby up to 5 miles an hour. Steer it. Got my LED light mounted up there. Turn this down to 50%. Right on 50% now. This is pretty easy on the batteries. Here's my battery setup. I have 3 batteries in parallel, all AGM batteries. And I know a lot of people would say that when you hook batteries up in parallel, they should be all the same size. Well, I've been running these for going on 4 years, and they're just like new, just like the day I bought them. I don't run them below 12.4 volts, never. I was told not to with the AGM battery, so I don't. I don't have a problem. I went from the lock in Oriskany, New York to the lock in Schuyler, 11 miles one way, so that was almost 11 miles one way. So that was 22 miles I went back and forth. By the time I got back to Oriskany, I had right around 12.4 volts. When I noticed that I was getting close, I turned it down, turned my speed down, and just went a little slower back. But I made 22 miles. That's pretty good. So that's a 125 amp hour battery, a 65 amp hour battery, and a 22 amp hour battery. So I got 200 and what? Amp hours. That one right there is a bear. That weighs 91 pounds. I just had my shoulder replaced, so I wasn't able to get out here. Today's the first day I've been out since I had my shoulder replaced. Caught one smallmouth bass on the way down with a stick on it. I thought it was a carp because that stick weighed quite a bit with that bass. When I finally got it up, it was just a little smallmouth. Well, probably about 12, 13 inch smallmouth bass. At least I caught something today. But mostly it was just to get out here and check this motor out. And it's doing really good. I like it. The only thing negative about it is I put this 12 volt out so I can control my trolling motor steering without having to plug in a separate wire for that. And it's not exactly what the battery is. And I have an LED indicator on the trolling motor, so I like to know how many volts I have so I can not run it under 12.4 and this was off by a few volts, so I just unplugged it and plugged the steering unit into the jump box plug that puts out the right voltage. Whatever the battery is, that's what it puts out. At least I know how many volts I have. I put a buck converter in here, but that doesn't seem to be doing the trick. It's good for the fan and the LED lights and everything on here, my switch lights, because it's still over 12 volts. It's just 0.4, maybe 5 volts off from the true voltage, so that works all right for everything it's intended for. But I'm gonna have to find another source so I can get a true 12 volt coming out of there, because I want to hook that up, be able to hook it up with a coiled cord that just goes right down to my steering unit. So yeah, I have this hooked up with the 10 gauge wire that Minkata sends their trolling motors with. I put an Anderson plug on, and then from there I got 8 gauge to the batteries, about 5 feet of 8 gauge. I know some people suggest you use 6 gauge for any length, but I've had this for 3 years now and I haven't had a problem with it overheating. Everything stays nice and cool. That's what I want. So yeah, this is working out great. I can actually use that speed control like a regular trolling motor now. 100% there. Going along pretty good. This is my my raft setup. I got it a little cluttered right now, but normally this has a whole floor in it. I only got half a floor in it right now, but this boat is more stable than any aluminum boat or real boat that I've been in that's this size. This is inflatable, as you can see. And if I go with 2 people, I'll remove this middle section of floor and I'll just put another half floor in, and it overlaps the floor that I'm sitting on. And 2 people can go, and this thing handles the weight no problem. It's rated for 1,000 pounds, so I'm way under that. But yep, this is my setup. I've had this raft for almost 10 years now. Got a couple holes in it here and there. I just patch them up. Haven't had one for quite a while now, but when I first got it, I was doing stupid things with it and always put a few small holes in it, but patched them right up. These things are pretty tough. They were relatively cheap at one point until things went awry overseas with trade deals and everything. Now they're 3 times as much. I got 2 of these, so I don't plan on buying another one, especially at the price they're asking. So I gotta make this last. I'm also thinking about maybe getting a fish skiff 16, a Sea Eagle fish skiff 16 boat. It's a little longer than this, about the same width, but it's more dynamically shaped than this one is. This is pretty spread out and has a lot of drag on it. If this motor was on a canoe or a kayak, I'd go twice as fast. But anyway, it's been a good raft. I enjoy it. Caught a lot of fish out of it. Brought it at a lot of places that you couldn't get a boat. Take the motor off and bring it to the West Canada Creek and take a trip down there. That's a good 8-mile ride. Pretty versatile. I like it. I owned a couple of real boats, and it just seemed after a while, if you didn't use them for a while, you lost interest in them, and there they sat. You had to keep them covered up or keep them inside, maintained. This, I just leave it right in the back of my vehicle and don't worry about it. The only thing I do is bring my batteries in the garage to charge them. That's it. It's handy. I like it. So that's it. See how durable this is. My last one, I didn't wear it out, so I'm hoping this one's made as well. See how it goes.